So some people might get mad at me for the opinions expressed in this review, but fuck it, I'm gonna say them anyway. I just saw the 1517 to Paris, and holy shit was it bad. Now, before anyone gets too pissed at me for hating the military or being against the people who serve or anything like that, first understand that it's fantastic that they did what they did and they should be proud. I have the utmost respect for the members of our armed forces and the risk that they take every day to serve this country. But bravery and heroism do not always translate well to the screen. Now, with that being said, let's talk about this movie. Now, if the 21% Rotten Tomatoes rating doesn't scare you away, or you're like me and didn't know that it had a 21% before seeing it, and you end up going to the theater to see this movie, I truly hope you're using a movie pass or rewards points or something to see this film, because it is not even close to being worth the price of admission. I usually try and restrain myself from making comments on the quality of the movie until the movie's over, but about halfway through it, I just couldn't take it anymore, and I had to let a few go to my girlfriend next to me. Now, the intro scene is pretty standard for these types of movies. It sets the tone for what I expected to be something in the vein of Patriots Day, which was very well done. But after that first 30 seconds, the entire movie falls to absolute shit. The trailer for this film implies that the movie called The 1517 to Paris might actually focus on, events that take place on a train that leaves at 1517 on its way to Paris. But pretty soon after that intro scene, we realize it's not focused on that at all. Instead, we get a straight hour of backstory for the three guys the movie's about: Alec, Spencer, and Anthony. And the vast majority of it is completely pointless. We see the kids changing schools, we see their mothers yell at their teacher when she suggests they might have ADD, they talk about God a lot. Alec joins the army, Spencer joins the Air Force. They both get shuffled around between a bunch of places they don't really care much to be in. Are you getting bored hearing me talk about this yet? Now just imagine how I felt being fed this truckload of unimportant information for an hour straight. There was one part of backstory that did come back into play later on, but I'll talk about that in a minute when I get to the spoilers. Now, the whole marketing pitch for this movie was that all the main roles were being played by the real people who lived them. Knowing that, it wasn't a stretch to imagine that they wouldn't be the best actors in the world, but even an A-list actor probably wouldn't have been able to do much with the massive turd of a script that was written. The dialogue was extremely choppy and forced. It felt like if you asked a high school student to write a script about a 1-year period of their life. They'd probably include a lot of stupid conversations that have no significance to anything and gloss over a lot of the things that could have actually made the story more interesting to an outside viewer. That's exactly what screenwriter Dorothy Bliskel did. And yes, I know this was based on the book that Alex, Spencer, and Anthony wrote, but there's plenty of major studio movies that have been written from source material that ordinarily wouldn't have lent itself to a major motion picture, but they're able to turn it into something pretty decent. That, unfortunately, wasn't the case with this one. And I'm not sure if it's the writing for the screenplay, the writing for the source material, or if it's actually how these guys are in real life, but man, they really do a great job of making you believe that they're actual morons. The one message that Spencer's backstory actually does successfully get across is that he's kind of a major fuck-up. He's either failed or quit at everything he's tried to do, so fuck it, let's try the military because of a 30-second interaction I had with a Marine while working at Jamba Juice. And he doesn't even join the Marines. He joins the Air Force with hopes of being a pararescue. And wouldn't you know it, he fails at that too. Apparently he lacks depth perception, and because of that, he couldn't pass the medical tests. It's an interesting, if unintentional, irony that this film also lacks any depth whatsoever. For all the character development, I found that I really couldn't give a shit what happens to any of them. As far as the acting goes, as I mentioned, I didn't have the highest expectations from these guys because, well, they're not actors. But even the acting from the professional actors was subpar. But again, I kind of feel like I have to blame the script here. There's only so much you can do when the director says, hey, say all these lines that don't really make sense, but try to make it feel like something someone would actually say in conversation. Speaking of direction, for a 5-time Academy Award-winning director, there were some real oversights. The biggest thing that sticks out in my memory is that the transitions between locations in Europe left the viewer not even knowing that the location had changed until someone mentioned the city they were in. You'd already proved that you didn't have a problem with subtitles telling us where we were because you used them during the backstory telling us we were in Sacramento. So why not put them to good use telling us which European city we're in when we're changing every 2 minutes with no warning and nothing implying any travel had taken place was shown on screen. Just having a bunch of jump cuts to the next place with no explanation is extremely confusing. I didn't even realize they were in Amsterdam until one of them said, "Man, last night was the most fun we had on this whole trip. We should just stay in Amsterdam." I should point out that this was on the day they are supposed to leave Amsterdam. So we've already seen what they did in this city before we even know what city it is. I seriously wonder if Clint Eastwood is legitimately happy with how this film came out. I'm not the biggest Eastwood fan, but he's proven that he can take a true story involving members of the military and turn it into an engaging, thought-provoking, and entertaining piece of cinematic art. American Sniper, I thought, was fantastic. It was well written, well directed, and well acted. Pretty much everything that this film was not. Okay, we're gonna get into spoiler territory now, so if you don't want spoilers, just jump to the part of the video that is on screen right now. Here we go. One major source of frustration for me was how much time was spent watching the main characters debate about whether they should even go to Paris or not. We already know that they go. It's in the fucking title. Why waste so much time acting like we don't know that they end up on the train to Paris and that a major event happens on that train? The one part of backstory that did actually come back into play, as I mentioned before, was Spencer's Air Force Jiu-Jitsu training. It was nice that at least one small thing from the mountain of unimportant backstory we got was looped back in when he attacks the terrorist on the train, but unfortunately, that one thing doesn't erase all the other garbage around it. Alright, this video is long enough at this point, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I was really trying to enjoy this film and went in hoping it would be something like Patriots Day, which took a bombing that lasted seconds and turned it into a really thoroughly entertaining, if not also emotional movie. Or even something like The Taking of Pelham 123, which mostly took place on board a train during a hijacking and was still extremely fun and entertaining to watch. Unfortunately, this film fell flat over and over and over again and eventually just became painful to watch. You can see it if you really want to, but I certainly won't be watching it again, and I'm giving the 1517 to Paris a 2 out of 10. If you enjoyed hearing my opinions on this movie and want to hear more, like this video and share, leave a comment if you want, and if this video goes over well, I'll do more. I see a lot of movies, usually a minimum of 4 a month, if not more, so there's lots and lots of potential content for me to review. Anyway, thank you for watching, and see you next time.